South Africa is in for indefinite load shedding stage 6, we're told, until further notice. The intensified power cuts are due to 4 breakdowns and a delay in returning units back to service. The colder weather caused by a cold snap has also led to increased demand, and that's despite Electricity Minister Dr. Hosiyanto Ramokgopa promising lower levels of power cuts this week and in fact going into the end of the year. Let's unpack this further. We're joined this morning by engineer and energy expert Mthunzi Luthuli is in studio with us. It's great to see you, sir. Thanks very much for coming in. The Electricity Minister says that ramping up load shedding is necessary. He's not going to back down on that in terms of increasing maintenance as well. He says it's a calculated risk. What do you make of that?
Good morning, Michelle. Good morning to the viewers. I don't accept the minister's, I don't share his sentiments. But before I get to the details of your question, I'd just like to, say that the problem that we have in this country, which is, because we forget what the actual problem is. My view, we lack big picture thinking and long-term electricity planning. Okay. What we should be doing is that in fact, we should have started a long time ago to build big power generation capacity to take our country forward. That's extremely, extremely important. And to have sufficient reserve capacity to attract investment. You see, when an investor who looks at investing in a country, whether they want to build a smelter or a factory, they look at the electricity situation. It's one of the things that they consider.
Absolutely.
And if you do not have reserve capacity, they ask themselves the question, where's the electricity going to come from? And it's not enough just to have sufficient generation capacity to cover your current demand. You need to have reserves. Because if an investor comes and invests today, and then 2 years down the line they have this load shedding, then they have a problem. So big picture thinking and long-term electricity planning in line with our economic planning, especially because we say we want to industrialize, we want to grow our economy. This has not been happening. And it's, for me, the main reason why we have this problem.
Yeah, but I mean, what do we do, Mthunzi? We need to do maintenance. We're having breakdowns. What is the, outside of this long-term planning, because it's late now, right, to talk long-term planning.
Yeah.
What do we need to do?
Okay. The maintenance has to be done, right? So typically what you should have is that out of your total generation capacity, 80% of that should be, let me start the other way around, 10% should be for unplanned capacity loss factor.
Right.
That's breakdowns. 10% should be for planned maintenance, which is, and then the balance should then be for meeting demand.
So
right?
that's 5,000 megawatts either way. Is that right? So 5,000 for unplanned and 5,000 for maintenance.
Yes. So if so Eskom's generation installed capacity is about 47,000. Right. Call it 50. If it was 50, then 5,000 would be for unplanned breakdowns, and 5,000 would be for planned maintenance, right. And then you would have 40,000 that's available for generation. Right. Now, in midwinter, our peak capacity, our peak demand is around 34,000, which means if you had that 40,000, you would still have sufficient reserve capacity of about 6,000, to play around with and to attract investment. Okay. Now, our UCLF at the moment, unplanned capacity loss factor, is around 16,000.
Yeah.
Okay?
It's almost 17,000,
yeah,
16,800.
Yes, it's almost 17,000. That's unacceptably high.
That's more than 3 times what we're saying it should be.
Yes, yes. And just to put it into perspective, Medupi Power Station is 4,800 megawatts capacity, right? Almost 5,000. That means we have more than 3 Medupis.
Yeah.
more than 3 Medupis that are out of service. So the situation is really unacceptable. 15, 16,000, 17,000 megawatts of UCLF is simply way too high by international standards.
So in this context, at the moment we've got 16,800 megawatts plus 5,000 megawatts out due to breakdowns and due to plant maintenance, and hence now we're at stage 6 load shedding indefinitely, right? We talk about this fiscal cliff that we're in as a country. The advice that analysts are giving government is to cut cabinet from 30 to 10. We need to cut our expenditure, essentially. We're trying to now cut our expenditure because we just cannot keep up with the demand we need to get the kind of growth we need in the economy.
Yeah.
Right? So the next 5 years, if we go on, along this trajectory, what do you reckon?
I think that we have to be careful about what we cut. Okay? My view is that South Africa is not a country that doesn't have money. The problem is the expenditure side. I think we tend to spend money in the wrong things, and there is a lot of wastage. So if we cut the wastage and we reprioritize our expenditure, we should be able to do the things that we have to do to move our country forward. Yeah, that is my view.
So, okay, let's talk stage 6 load shedding until further notice. I want to talk to you more about, as an energy analyst, this issue around IPPs, independent power producers, and renewables, getting renewables into the grid. We've had some analysts on the program here telling us that actually renewables are not the solution that we need for load shedding at the moment, just given the amount of time it takes to get those megawatts into the grid. Is that something that you would agree with?
I do agree with those statements. But the problem is even bigger, okay? It's not only the time that it takes to commission and to bring those plants online, which granted is shorter than your conventional plants. But the problem with the renewables is that they are intermittent, they are unreliable because of that.
So we can't say we'll get X amount of megawatts.
You cannot say, if we build this wind plant, we will definitely get X amount of energy, because you don't know how much wind is going to blow, and you don't know when it blows. The sun, shines 8 hours of the day. A day is 24 hours. And so you only get power for 1/3 of the time. We usually talk of capacity factors of these plants. Renewables in South Africa have capacity factors of about 25%. I often say to people, the financial equivalent of capacity factor is asset utilization. If you invest in a plant, you want to use it all the time so that you get the return on your investment. So why build plants that only have a capacity factor of 25%?
Right.
And that you cannot dispatch. Dispatching means, you can determine when you should bring them online, when they are needed, when the power or when the demand is high. So if you take, for instance, solar plants, okay, they start generating at around 8 o'clock in the morning, and by 5 o'clock they shut down. Now, at 8 o'clock in the morning, that's towards the end of your morning peak. And our biggest problems are the two peaks, morning peak and evening peak. So your renewables are not available at the time.
But surely we could
that
store.
You actually...
We then tap into our storage, surely.
Yes. So you can do that. You can store the power and then dispatch it during the peaks. But the storage is expensive.
Right.
At the moment, the best technology that we have is lithium-ion battery storage. But at the moment, it's prohibitively expensive.
Yeah, which even for households, prohibitively expensive.
Even for households.
Yeah.
So, when people say, no, renewables are our cheapest option, energy option, it's not true. It's not true. When you start taking into account capacity loss factors, when you start taking into account the cost of battery storage, when you start taking into account the fact that we have to build long transmission lines into the deepest areas in the Karoo in order to connect them. The other day, the minister was saying they're going to need over 200 billion rand to build those transmission lines, which will only be used 25% of the time. Then you start wondering whether it makes sense or not. Now, this doesn't mean that we say we shouldn't worry about environmental issues. But I always say to people, nuclear power emits zero carbon dioxide. Zero, not 1%, not 2%, zero. So why is it that we are not investing in nuclear power generation?
And what's the answer to that?
We don't know. We try and get answers from the officials. They don't give answers. These decisions are irrational. Nuclear power should be a big part of our solution. Not the only one, but certainly a significant one.
Yeah.
And nuclear power is safe. It's a technology that's been there since the 1940s. People have this thing that nuclear power is unsafe. It is not true.
Unless something goes seriously wrong.
Yeah, there are, yes,
yeah.
But if you look at the history, there's only been one nuclear incident, the Chernobyl, where people died. Long Mile Island, there was some incident. There was no radiation emission. Nobody was injured. Nothing. And Fukushima, same thing. Nobody died, nothing. And it wasn't actually a nuclear accident. They had an earthquake which then caused a tsunami, and that affected the plant. Yeah. So it was not a problem with the nuclear technology itself.
Yeah, it sounds like that perhaps is the most prohibitive thing, the possible danger that does exist, right?
Yeah, but the problem is what I call risk bias. It's risk bias. Nuclear power is safe. And
the benefits are there.
Yeah.
Mthunzi, you're getting me into trouble. It's 6:58. I need to wrap up our interview.
Okay. But on nuclear very quickly, just to wrap up. More than 80% of electricity in France is run on nuclear. And in fact, generally in Europe, big part of it is. The United States has a lot of nuclear units running. So it does not make sense for us to exclude nuclear from our generation mix.
And so
makes absolutely, especially because it complies with environmental regulations.
Big question that we need to put to the electricity minister next time he has his weekly briefing. Mthunzi Luthuli is an energy analyst here in studio with us.